Guys, we are live in the studio.
Okay, welcome back, folks. We are on episode 3 of Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide. We're still here. Thanks very much for all the positive feedback so far. We've got another really great guest again today lined up. But just before we get into things, if you do like what you hear, please feel free to share again. This is going live, so share it around and we'll hopefully get some good interaction. Also, just to mention again, we're really grateful for another sponsor of this podcast. We've got Spartan Protein, who are big supporters of natural bodybuilding, and they've stepped up again to kindly show their support. So follow their page, check out the products. We'll also be sharing some stuff on theirs. They've offered a discount code for our listeners, and that's first15. So we'll get into it. I'll just introduce our guest today. We've got Ben Wortley, all the way from I believe Adelaide in Australia. Most of you probably know a bit about Ben. He is a pro natural bodybuilder. He's more than proved his worth as a pro bodybuilder. He's gained his pro card in the ICN, the WMBF, and then more recently the DFAC. He's well known for his granite conditioning and also some pretty entertaining posing routines. So we'll get straight into it, and we thank Ben for joining us because we know that Saturdays are for the boys. So welcome, Ben.
Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you giving me the call up.
No, thanks for being on.
Thanks, guys. I do appreciate it. I always love to have a chat, a bit of banter, and mate, don't apologise for being a sad. I'm happy to call it a night in and be a little bit more productive.
Fantastic. Thanks anyway. We'll just explain that obviously being quite so far away, there might be a slight delay in you receiving what we say and then what you respond to it. So, but in any case, Ben, this is like the first time you and I have even spoke, either in person, so to speak, and. So I would like to ask the first question, which is, can you give us and anyone who doesn't know quite so much about you a bit of background, sort of how you got into training, where you started, and how you got into bodybuilding, as it were?
Yeah, sure, Chris. So the journey for me started 2007. So I'll try not to go too far with the background, but growing up as a kid, probably like a lot of other bodybuilders, loved every sport. I tried about everything under the sun, everything from I loved running, athletics, sports days at school. We got a thing over here called Aussie Rules Football. I did that. I did soccer. I did basketball. That was until kids started hitting puberty and I didn't. And realised that I wasn't cut out for that sport. I've tried just about everything. I love skateboarding. I did BMX. I did mountain biking. I raced motocross, go-karts. The list goes on. I was a big active kid, and I loved anything with adrenaline involved and anything that I could push myself in. Growing up from a young age, I was very competitive. I had some older siblings, and the next oldest sibling to me was he was about 8 years older than me, my brother, and then the rest were older from there. So you can imagine as a kid trying to play basketball when you're 8 and they're 16, 17, 18, 19. It's a quick way to try and obviously get as good as you can, as quick as you can, because you're getting run around the court by those guys. I remember my brother playing cricket out the front, and he used to make me bowl to start with, and I would bowl, and he would just hit sixes down the street. And I think that's why I got so good at running, was because I'd clock up quite a few kilometres, and then the one time I'd get him out, he'd be like, "Oh, that's it, I'm tired, I'm not playing anymore." So I started up that sort of background amongst my siblings. I just loved to push myself and be the best I could be. And I would get frustrated if I didn't win something at school and I thought I could win, not for the sake of someone being better than me, but that if I thought that I had more to give. So it was always, not to sound cliche, but it was more of a me versus me type thing. Anyway, going through high school, and I started to realize that my body type, I was quite small in stature, and I was pretty lean from my athletics and long distance running. I was right into like state cross country, and that was my main focus. And then once high school finished, I was 17. I started up university, and I was doing this course called Human Movement and Sports Science, which is pretty much a degree to do with everything relating to the human body, nutrition, training. And at that stage, I was about 62 kilos. And so I started learning about weight training, and I was this sort of lightweight kid. And you start to sort of open up your views a little bit. And I noticed, like, obviously there was a lot of emphasis on muscle hypertrophy during this course and strength training. So I decided to join up this little studio. And at that age as well, obviously, females become a bit of a focus as well when you start to want to maybe build some biceps and some chest. And so then I started in the gym. And that was in January of 2007. From there, to be honest, like I really enjoyed the fact that, like running, your results were dependent on how hard you basically committed and how much you put in. I love team sports as well, but the thing that continued to draw me back to like the athletics and the long distance running was that your result was directly a reflection upon your individual efforts. Like, for example, footy, you could have as an individual an amazing game, but if your team loses, it's something that you can't really celebrate because it's about that camaraderie amongst the boys and everything. So I like that weight training was my results were directly dependent on my effort that I put in. Yeah. And not to be a bit sadistic, but I liked the feeling of fatigue and pain, and even like when you're running, you're getting the lungs burning, and now this was sort of transferred to the gym where you're getting this blood flow through the muscles, and I clicked to it really quickly, and I really enjoyed it. And from there, you start to see these little results. Like I noticed these tiny little tennis balls growing on my arms, and t-shirts sort of fitting a little bit different. So I was still about 17 and a half at this stage. And then from there, I was really starting to prioritize my weight training. So I would go to the gym before footy training, and sometimes I would even skip footy training just to go to the gym. So that year I sort of plugged away, kept going to the gym, my cardio work as well, playing footy. I turned 18, you start going out to nightclubs, this and that. And then I was also developing my knowledge in the field of developing the body and nutrition and everything through that first year of uni. And then I think it was actually at one of my uni lecture theatres, there was a poster up, and it had natural bodybuilding titles. And anyway, I sort of had a bit of a giggle about it. Like, there's these tan guys, and I thought, nah, that's not for me. And then the guy who actually owned the studio that I trained at, who helped me out with my first programs, the initial sort of push-pull and lower body, he said, like, man, you should think about going in this. They got a teenage class. And I was like, nah, no way. Like, I don't want to stand up there in the Speedos and the fake tan. And anyway, a few people sort of got in my ear, and I thought, right, maybe I have a crack at this. And I was still playing footy. We're in the footy finals, and I think it's about 4 weeks out from when the comp was, and I was still eating pasta and going for runs and, having some beers with the boys. And then I decided, right, well, you know what, I'm going to have a crack at this. I don't care if mates laugh at me. I'm going to give it a go. So I dropped the beers, I dropped the pasta. And then there was a supplement shop. They're called Aussie Muscle, and they are the main promoter, and they put on our show here. I went in there and I contacted the guy and I said, I'm interested in this bodybuilding show. And I remember he looked at me. His name's Kim. I went in there in a jumper, and I still wasn't that big, but I was quite lean. And then he looked at me and goes, the bodybuilding show? And I said, yeah, I'm interested in it. I've been told there's a teenage class. And he goes, oh, pull up your shirt, show me your abs. And he looked a bit doubtful. Anyway, I pulled my shirt up and I didn't really think much of it. And he was like, "Whoa, okay, all right, you're ready." And then he basically on a contact to learn posing. And back in 2007, YouTube was pretty new, so it wasn't really a big YouTube thing. You couldn't really look it up yourself. And this guy, he helped me with posing, and then he said, "Actually, I want to sponsor you for this show." So he did like my peak week for the last couple of weeks. And that was a big experience. I remember just the feelings of fatigue and knowing what I know now. Sure. I wouldn't have done it that way, but I put, like, obviously when it's new to you, you just you trust that opinion, and I think the whole peak week and depletion, everything's come a long way since then. But anyway, I got up there all tanned up, bronzed up, and I was in the teenage category, and I think there was about 7 or 8 of us, and I just remember obviously getting out there in front of the lights, and it was one hell of an experience. And then anyway, back then it was a split show, so we had the morning show, the pre-judging. I went away during the pre-judging and the night show. I hadn't even had a routine made. And back in my sort of late primary school, early high school years, I used to do a bit of break dancing. So anyway, I found this song at the time. I think it was called Timberlake, The Way I Am, or The Way I Are. Anyway, I got home in between the morning and evening show, and I sort of put some headphones in and I was listening to it. I just made up this routine which had a bit of breakdancing, a bit of posing, went back for the night show and did the routine, and like the crowd, they thoroughly enjoyed it because I guess it was something different. For me, I didn't know if it was any different. It was all new to me. And I ended up taking home, took out the teenage title, best posing routine, and the most muscular award, which is an award they gave for, I guess, in the sky on stage. And all this was surprise expectations, and I think even my parents they were pretty shocked by it. And then I think they were pretty keen from that footy and stuff, and they said, "Right, you've done that. That was an amazing achievement." But then I started to think, like, right, well, this is. Then I heard about those nationals, and I thought, right, next year, like, I'm going to give this a red hot go, and I'm going to stop footy. I'm going to have 12 months and give this a crack and go to nationals. And so the year passed, and I learned a lot about. I became, as most of you guys probably did when you got into weights, I'm really like, no, I'm not obsessed, but like I was reading every magazine, I was looking up websites, I was reading about supplements, and this is back in you know, they would have those claims on Cell Tech, like, you know, you add 20 pounds in 3 days and this sort of stuff. And anyway, I was training at Fitness for. We had an MC at the show. His name's Nick Jones, and he's won multiple world titles with a NAT. And he came up to me in the gym. I didn't actually recognize him at first. And he goes, I MC'd the show the other day. You're that young lad that won the teenage class. And I was like, oh, yeah, thanks, mate. And anyway, we got chatting and everything. And he's like, mate, your condition was crazy. And like I said, this was all new to me. So I didn't really have much to compare myself by. And anyway, he said to me, come out to the car, mate. I got something for you. And I went out to his car, and he's popped open the boot, and he gave me this Gentech visor. And that was, it turns out Nick Jones, he's the owner of a supplement company, a very successful one here in Australia called Gentech. He gave me this Gentech visor, and he gave me this DVD, and it was his DVD on his return to natural bodybuilding after he suffered chronic fatigue. And anyway, I had no idea that this guy, he was like a big deal in the industry, especially here in Australia. He's one of the most well-respected guys. And so I went home, I watched this DVD, and I used to live in that visor. I used to wear it all the time. And Nick Jones, he's probably been my biggest inspiration and mentor. So anyway, the year progressed. I was just doing my thing, grinding away, going through uni. I was sort of like training south of our city, where it wasn't like the bodybuilding scene wasn't as big as sort of the city.
Yeah.
And anyway, Nick Jones sent me an email, and he said, mate, I'd like to catch up with you for a bit of a chat, if that's cool. So I caught up with him, and then he actually offered me a sponsorship for his supplement company, Gentech. And that was about, I reckon about August 2008, and I was due to the nationals in September, October. So I've been with Gentech, like, fortunately enough, and I'm so grateful and blessed. I've been with them now since the beginning. So they've been my one and only supplement sponsor. And the next year I went to nationals. I did a nationals. So obviously I had to do state shows again. I was lucky enough to win that. Went to the nationals in Sydney. I won that in the teenage class. And then I went to nationals on our Gold Coast and I won that. And I think that was maybe out of 25 young lads. But the same thing used to happen to me each show. Like when I was in a jumper or a t-shirt and I was pumping up, like especially in the teenage years, like everyone's eyeing each other off and there's a lot of testosterone flowing and, you know, you're sussing the guy doing the curls over there or the rows. And I was just a young pup that was, I did it because I loved it. Mate, I had guys laugh at me when I was in a t-shirt, and then I would take my t-shirt off and because of my condition, like I think when you're that lean, you can get away with being smaller, but then obviously once the clothes come off, that smaller appearance looks bigger because there's not much body fat on it. And then you get the guys really staring, and it's kind of like you go from nothing to all of a sudden something. So that was probably one of the most memorable comps was the 2008 because that was my first national Aussie titles. And then I thought, like, wow, maybe if I stick with this and I keep committing, I just wanted to see how far I could go. Not so much about the titles, not so much about any fame or anything, because this like Instagram wasn't even around back then, but more so I just want to see what I can do with my body. So that was 2008. The journey went on. 2009 juniors, 2010 I won the nationals as a junior, and at the end of the nationals I thought the season was going to be over. I had all my cheat meals planned afterwards. I had my chocolates in my bag, and then anyway the guy at the end of the show said, mate, I won the junior class and then they had an overall, and I ended up winning the overall show. And the guy came up to me afterwards and said, like, we want to fly you to New York. We'll give you $1,500 to go towards your airfares if you go to New York and do the Worlds. And like this was, I actually remember I got pretty emotional by this because I had no expectations. I didn't expect to beat any men. I remember before going out for the overall, I'd been smashing a few Lindt chocolates and my cheat meals already started because I didn't count myself in at all. But as the story sort of unfolded, it was again one of my biggest achievements to date was winning that national overall title as a junior. And then so I continued on. I went to New York that was the WMBF men's, and I ended up winning the lightweight men's. And then I went in the overall again, and I was lucky enough to win the amateur overall world title. So I was 21 and like I was in complete shock. So not only was I in New York, that was my first time to America, but I managed to snag this amateur men. It was a lightweight title and then the overall. So that was 2010. 2011 came around. So I was 21 years old at that time, and then 2011 came around. I chose to do a bit of travel with my mates. So me and 7 mates, we went away to Europe. We did about 3 months over there, and that was a big deal for me because going up through those ranks, 2007, 8, 9, 10, that was from pretty much 17 and a half through to 21, 22. Like, I think for a guy or anyone in particular, that's a big point of your life where you grow and develop a lot into adulthood. So for me, like, I missed out on a lot back then because I was so committed to the bodybuilding. You know, I missed out on going out drinking with the guys, like a lot of social and lifestyle experiences that, you know, a lot of people go through in that sort of young adolescent years. So when the boys said they were doing a big Europe trip, I wanted to get on board, and I didn't really get left out of things, but I think because people thought I was so committed to doing what I do that maybe I wasn't interested. But the thing is with me, I love balance. I love everything. I love my family, my friends. I love doing, like I said, anything with an adrenaline rush. I still love to let my hair down every now and then. I think, and that's why I've had such longevity in the sport as well, is because I learned that balance. And then from then I got back into it. 2012, I went away to the Worlds again. So that now was no more junior categories. I was in open men's, and I was lucky enough. I did the States nationals and world titles, and I was fortunate to win those. And then I got my first big injury, which was a shoulder injury. And it happened my first session after the world titles. I was still away on holidays, so it was away in America. And I just felt this twang on my shoulder. It was my left shoulder at the time. And this was something that, fortunately enough, my first few years, I was bulletproof. Like, I used to go in there and as we all did when we were young, you do a couple of warm-up sets on bench, and then you basically load that thing on and go on for it. No cool downs. That wasn't around back then. That was, a bit cool. Uncool. There was not much rotational work in terms of like with the bands or any priming work of surrounding stability muscles. It was just you get in there, maybe do a few push-ups and you're ready to go. And this was, again, a big turning point for me, now having an injury. So 2013, I didn't compete. I pushed through the injury. I had a torn labrum in my shoulder. And then we had a Gentech exhibition stand at one of our fitness shows. It's kind of like one of your body powers. We call it the Arnold's here. And anyway, Nick Jones said he wanted to do some filming. So he said maybe if I did like a little bit of a diet, just so we look a little bit better on camera. And I trained around the shoulder and dieted down a little bit. And I actually came in pretty lean. And then from there, we did the filming, and there was a state show about 4 weeks later. And I thought, I reckon I could probably just keep dieting for a bit longer and add in a bit of cardio and do the state show. And I ended up doing the state show, did the national show, went away then to Slovakia for the Worlds. And I did that around the injury, and I was able to achieve that. But I was fortunate enough. I won. That was with IMBA, and I won the men's middleweight, I think it was, world title. And then there was this guy, he snagged me in the overall. He was amazing, actually. I forget his name, but he was this bald guy, and he's European. He competes a lot with the IMBA. After that, my shoulder was pretty much toast, so I had to get the recon. That was in 2015. Had it reconstructed. Obviously did all the rehab. It took about 6 months to get back into the gym properly. And I loved my motocross and everything. And then ironically, it was, I think, 7 months exactly from my operation. I was back training about 90%. We went out with the boys on the motocross bikes, and we were at this racetrack out at Murray Bridge, and somebody had pulled on the track in a section where there was sort of like a blind corner. And I'd come around this section and probably like doing 70, 80 Ks and clip the back of this person. Came off and landed on my other shoulder. Long story short, completely ruptured my AC, and that was another surgery. So then I had 7 months exactly after my first surgery, I had a reconstruction on the other shoulder. So that was 2015, 2016. Injuries now for me, unfortunately, have been a pretty common occurrence. 2017, I got back into it all. Again, trained around the shoulders the best I could. And that's when I did the ICN shows here, came across and met you boys at the DFAC, that was one of my favorite comps to date. And then I did the WMBF. So that's kind of my background, which wasn't meant to be as long as that.
No,
now
listen,
I know my life just as much as I.
No,
that's it from start to finish, pretty much, in terms of my competing career and what's led to me to where I am now.
Yeah, sure, that's great. And it's funny that you mentioned about, being sort of dismissed when you were in your hoodie and then you stripped off and everyone started to take notice, because it's kind of a familiar scenario that at the DFAC Worlds you were walking around in a hoodie. No one really knew much about you, and then there's this guy stripping off backstage and everyone's just in awe. And obviously you went on to smash it and got your pro card there. But we mentioned that you'd got pro cards in 3 different federations: the ICN, the DFAC, and the WMBF. We had a few questions sort of related to this. And I guess the first one is, do you, in your experience, do you think the different feds sort of favour different things in the judging? For example, some maybe look more highly upon conditioning, some more fullness, some more sort of balance and symmetry. And is that something you're mindful of when you're looking at sort of peaking strategies, or do you just say, I just want to bring what I think is my best package?
That's an awesome question. The biggest thing with me is that I don't like to get involved in any sort of politics. Different federations can have different cliquey groups, I guess you could say. And I want to test myself against the most amount of people that I can test myself against, because there's no point, for example, like WMBF, that's huge in America, but here in Australia, we don't even have a pro show. The DFAC, you've got the best of the best, a lot of you guys from the UK, which we don't have a DFAC show here in Australia. ICN is huge here in Australia, so that's sort of testing us against the best here. And I think recently they've got a lot of people on from sort of South Korea somewhere in Korea. And the Italians, I think a lot of those guys have gone across there. So to be honest, guys, the reason why I just try and obviously compete in those three is just to really challenge myself and see where I stack up against everyone. In terms of prepping and my approach to these comps, I just do exactly the same each one. The goal in the off season, I try and add as much muscle as I can. And then the goal when I get to pre-comp, I just try and get as lean as I can, try and get dick skin. And you blur that out. It's a common
I love that phrase.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. My mate actually, he made some T-shirts, and his T-shirt said Team Dick Skin. He gets a few interesting looks at the gym, to say the least. But my approach is the same for all of them. Unfortunately, with EFAC, I actually got food poisoning. Like I got into the States, I think it was on the Tuesday, and the comp for you guys was on the Saturday. I had a few big errors in my lead up to that. I got really, really sick. It was, I think, Wednesday morning, and I was throwing up all day, all night. I still took myself to the gym. I was in LA at the time, so I was training at Gold's, and I remember dragging my ass there, and I was just, it's funny, you can go throughout a 20, 24-week prep, not getting sick once, and then a few days out, I'm throwing my guts up. And, in hindsight, it probably helped with depletion a little bit, but I remember...
Oh, we seem to have...
fluid.
Sorry, Ben. We're just getting a bit of a broken reception. Stand by.
We might have to just give him a call back in a second, guys.
Okay.
He's clearly done quite a lot of talking there, hasn't he? He's gone through all his biography and everything.
I think you might be back there, Ben. Can you hear us?
Are you back online?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Would you just repeat that last sort of 30 seconds? Can you hear us, Ben?
Where was I up to? Where was the last bit you had? I've got you guys, yep.
Yeah. I think you were just talking about the food poisoning and the lead up to the DFAC Worlds.
And then you got to how the food poisoning.
Sorry, boys, I've just lost you there.
Sorry, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I've got you now. Yep.
Yeah. You'd got to the point where you thought that the food poisoning you thought it might have helped with your depletion a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I remember Googling, and I get antibiotics or anything that might make me retain fluid. You get quite anal in that last lead up to the prep. So anyway, I discovered this thing called oregano oil. It was meant to be like nature's antibiotic. So I went way down to a health food shop, and mate, that honestly brought me pretty good within like 12 hours. So I continued on through that peak week, and then I also stuffed up my flight. I thought that what would be a smart idea, flying from LA to Miami, it's quite a big journey. I thought that there was like an 11 o'clock flight at night, or maybe it was a midnight, and I thought, oh, that's cool. I can sleep on the plane. I don't have to worry about night accommodation. And then get in Miami, and then I can go into weigh-in and that sort of thing. Turns out that flight, I was between like two guys that would have been, I'm talking like 120 kilos each. One of them had this shocking head cold, and he was coughing and sneezing all flight. So I'm there with like my jumper up around my nose, thinking I'm going to get more sick. Got hardly any sleep on that flight. I got in. I had no meals ready. So there was a Whole Foods just across. Is it the Hyatt that hotel is, wherever the pod was?
Yeah, that Whole Foods was a lifesaver, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was that Whole Foods across there. Yeah, so I went across there and I got some oats, and then I think I got some liquid egg whites from their fridge and microwaved them and nuked them, and then came in and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anyone there. I just sort of obviously did the lie detector test, and you fill out your sheet with your supplements, everything like that. And I remember I looked up, the reason I chose DFAC was I came across a guy I met years ago, Siobhan. He did WMBF, and then I saw he did DFAC, and this beautiful stage lighting and with the purple sort of up lights from the floor and the smoke. And I just remember thinking, man, the presentation effort these guys put in is phenomenal. So I'm going to fly myself over there and have a crack. And I remember seeing David Kay. Obviously, he was a previous world title winner. And I remember seeing him weigh in, and he's a big boy. And I'm just this young pup there that I probably looked even lighter from that food poisoning. And I remember introducing myself to him and said hello and this and that. But then afterwards, after I got off the stage, I remember he came up to me and he was talking to me, and Bob Waterhouse, he was talking to me. And that's when I sort of got the opportunity to meet all the UK team, and everyone was just, they were the nicest people to me. And I've made a lot of friendships, probably more friendships out of that one comp than I have, after many, many comps here. And I think that's why I just like to do as many sort of competitions as I can, because not only does it give you an opportunity to meet cool people and like-minded people and establish some friendships, but also you get to see where you're at. And I think that's the ultimate test of where you lie on a scale. Sometimes people stick to their one federation, and that's nothing against those people. I fully respect them too, but I do it personally just to see where I rank, I guess, on the food chain as a whole.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really good sharing those experiences. Obviously, that 2017 season for you, you went on this big trip to the States, and obviously you did the Miami and then went on to LA and Boston. It was obviously like a big, almost like a life experience. Is there anything particularly from that whole trip that stands out as being your best memory?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing about that trip was, I remember when I planned it all, it was at the beginning of the year. It was in about January, and I was thinking about the comps for the years, and that's when I got out the calendar. And originally DFAC was the main goal because I'd seen that the comps via social media, and then I thought, right, I'm over there, so what other federations can I do? And then WMBF worked out perfectly. That was 2 weeks after. So I planned the whole trip, and then as I was getting closer to it, Dad said, mate, I'm more than happy to come over and help you out. And I actually, I politely declined. I said, Dad, I really appreciate that. It's thought that counts, but I really want to do this as, just as a journey for myself as well. And it was an amazing trip. I had some crazy experiences with Airbnbs and rocking up to houses where there was 7 other guests and they didn't know who I was. I didn't know who they were. And then trying to meal prep in places like that. I remember I went to I kind of did a bit of a gym crawl. So some of the major gyms that were in California, I ticked those off the list. And it was an enjoyable trip. And I think when you're in that comp prep mode, some people get quite a bit of brain fog, I should say. Sorry, I'm eating my words here. I actually get a lot of mental clarity, I think, because everything's on point. My diet's on point, my training's on point. And so it was a good escape from my daily routine as well. And I kind of got to live the bodybuilding dream while I was over there. I'd wake up, I'd go do some cardio, I'd come back, I'd cook my meals. Throughout the day, if I was in a certain city or whatever and there was some cool stuff to check out, I'd check that out. I'd then go train weights in the evening, and I got to do that day in, day out. And I'd say if there was a standout memory, I would say unbiasedly, probably that dinner and the night of the DFAC. That was just such a fun night. And I remember going out with the boys and girls, and we went to that burger restaurant. I took a niacin instead of a digestive enzyme. I
was going to come on to this.
Go around burgers and all this.
Bob Waterhouse told us this story.
I sometimes I'll take the niacin before going on a bit of blood flow and to get the core temperature up a little bit, because you be a little bit those chunks. You don't want a turtle hiding in the shell. And then I remember I went out to dinner and I thought I had the and then all of a sudden, far out, man, it was like I'd been sunburned and I've been out in some sort of beach and actually in Burnen, and then I can't remember if it was Bob Waterhouse or one of the boys said something to me, and then I checked my other pocket, and that was a digestive enzyme. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I've just had a nice and things like that. If like, the funny memories, and after that, because I knew I had 2 weeks up my hand, I remember I think we finished up dinner there about midnight or 12:30. I got on my phone. I thought, right, next 2 weeks, like I've got a bit of room for dessert. So I ended up finding like this one joint that was open in Miami, and I paid about $30 one way to get there in an Uber. And as I was like rolling up, they were just shutting their doors, but because I had like sort of my carry bag and the trophy I'd won, and they let me in. And anyway, they made me this gluttonous, these 2 big baked cookies. On top of that, there was like 4 scoops of ice cream, probably like half a jar of Nutella. They put on these M&Ms, and they were getting photos of me for their Facebook and Instagram page. And I remember sitting there eating that, and I didn't want to let these boys down. Like, if you're a bodybuilder, you want to finish something, right? So I had this thing in front of me. I started getting these palpitations in my chest. I'm getting the sweats on. Like, I was getting short on breath. I'm thinking, I was about mouthfuls away from diabetes here. And I just remember, like, sometimes, like, I don't encourage binge eating or anything like that, but sometimes when you take yourself to that point, it's almost a good thing for the next 2 weeks. I didn't even want to look at a single sweet. Like, I was more than happy to just like indulge myself in a bed of lettuce and chicken breast every day after that. But that whole trip as a in its entirety was just a good experience, and a good development curve for myself as well, because some days, you're not even actually having much human interaction. You might say hello to the girl at the coffee shop, and then you might talk to the person briefly at the gym you go into. But other than that, there's a lot of sedentary time, and it gives you a good chance for self-reflection. And so, yeah, it was a fantastic trip as a whole.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm just, some of the stuff you're mentioning there, it's funny that your favourite moment is like the bit after the competition, whereas most people, you ask them for the best moment in bodybuilding and they'll tell you about a win or something, this trophy or that trophy. I'm quite surprised pleasantly that your favourite moment was the dinner afterwards.
I didn't realise I'd done that. Yeah.
So I mean, when you talk about like
yeah,
people talk about balance a lot, don't they? So people talk.
Sorry, I think because of the delay, I don't know if I was cutting you off there. Sorry,
no, it's fine.
I was just going to say, and just add on to that, that it's funny. I didn't realise that is. You bring up a good point there about it not being the competition itself. I've done that many comps now. I think it's like about 50 or so. And don't get me wrong, I love the competition because I'm a competitive person. But when you've been doing it for that long, it's the lead up to the comp. It's the times you got out of bed and did cardio when you didn't want to. It's the sessions that you felt like you had no strength in you, but you got under that bar and you kept squatting. They're always, once the comps are over, it's funny, you're right. It's the memories like after the comps, the mates I've made. It's the sessions I pushed through that I wanted to quit. They're the ones that probably stick out in my mind rather than when you're on stage, it goes so fast. And at the end of the day, that's just sort of the icing on the cake. I think it's the whole journey that becomes memorable as a whole.
Yeah. And I can really, really appreciate that.
100%. And that's it. There's got to be something more than just that bit on stage, isn't there? You've got to enjoy the whole part of it, and it's like you say, the things that you remember most are those other experiences, not just the day on stage, because that's one day out of the whole year, isn't it? So it's really good to hear that from you, Ben.
Yeah, because you get a lot of people who, through social media, don't you, they're just always pushing about how hard they're training, they're doing this, they're doing that, and it's all for that one end of winning that trophy. And it almost seems as though they're trying to validate their own lives. And I'm not a massive advocate of that. I like my training, I enjoy it, and that's why I chose to compete. And I much prefer my life just, the rest of the time.
Just adding on to that. Yeah, just adding on to that. Unfortunately, this sport, because it requires the highest level of dedication, and I feel like when people, they obviously have this one calendar date that they are working their ass off for, and it's the weeks of dieting, it's the weeks of meal prep, it's the weeks of training, it's the hours of cardio, and unfortunately, if they just put that as their main focus this one day, what often happens is that's when you hear of these post-comp blues, because they've had almost a 24/7 mindset on this one particular day, which, for some people can be 10 minutes if they just do one category. And then once that's over, they're left in this state of like a confused state where they're thinking, what's next? That's ticked off the list. What do I do now? And because they've associated, I guess, their significance and their who they are as a person as this one competition, because it's been their key focus for so many months on end, it's super important to have things outside of bodybuilding and to have some plans for after the competitions. That's one thing I couldn't preach enough to someone competing for the first time is, yes, you're going to need that.
Looks like we've lost him again, guys. He'll come back hopefully in a second.
Tempting environments.
Ben, sorry, we lost you for about 10 seconds again there. You were just...
How am I now, boys?
Yeah, no, you're back on. You were just talking about plans after a bodybuilding show and like the importance of that.
Yeah, I think it's super important, because if you tie in that competition as your only sort of self-identity and your significance, then like once that comp's over, you're left sort of scratching your head as to like, well, what do I do now? Who am I now? And like, this is where there's a vicious cycle that starts up where I think particularly with social media, and this is something I'm pretty passionate about, is, nowadays with Instagram and that sort of thing, people are renowned for their image, and they're popular and have their followers because of their image, and particularly amongst females, they then kind of feel trapped that they gained these followers for looking such good condition and incredible shape, and then once their competition's over, it's really hard for them, because they almost have to attain this physical appearance, otherwise they may lose followers, their likes may decrease, and then it sets up this vicious trap where it can be very hard to then return to, I guess, a more of a healthy or normal condition. And I think this is where it concerns me in years to come, because these people that might be in the highlight reel now, where they do have a significant following and their business or their brand or their income is solely dependent on that image, particularly if you're a female, and even with things like menstrual cycles and down the track when they're looking at childbirth and that sort of thing, it makes you think, like, at what cost do we keep trying to uphold that appearance of like super low body fat percentages? And it turns out to be a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes. And fitness either.
He'll come back.
Sorry, Ben.
Hey there, boys.
Yeah. Sorry, we had another little technical glitch. Yeah. Okay, so that's really good to hear. Your thoughts on that, Ben. And I know that you're, a lot of people, because of your background, know who you are, and you've got quite a big following within the natural bodybuilding community. But you're not that sort of prominent on social media, and I think it's rare that you put up bodybuilding posts, and often a lot of your posts are just sort of beers with the boys and sort of your life outside bodybuilding. Is that something you've said yourself that's something you're quite passionate about promoting?
I'm glad you asked that, actually. It's funny, most times I get like a podcast or whatever, it's one of the main questions people ask me is about my social media. And to be honest, like, I love my mates, I love life experiences, I love traveling. Don't get me wrong, I love bodybuilding as well, but like, I am still Ben Wortley. It's not just like Ben Wortley, the bodybuilder. And that's something that got sort of tied in with me a lot in my younger years with the teenage and junior class and everything. And I'm like, we're all more than that. And it might be something that we get recognized for, but like, that's why I still love training to this day. And I've still got plenty of years left in me, is because I attribute a lot of that to having that balance. And in terms of the social media, I guess, you know, at the end of the day, I'm real on there. I'm authentic, and that's my life. Like, I like to sort of show people what I'm about. And it's one of those things where I don't necessarily want to spam people with, you know, I don't want to come across the wrong way that I'm self-indulged or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. So I try and limit the amount of, you know, bodybuilding shots and selfies and that sort of thing. I would like to probably consider building my following a bit more and educating a bit more people on, I think, balance, and perhaps my niche audience might be, you know, breaking through some of this noise that we see on Instagram now, which is, you know, I think we're going to go through a change where there's the standard sort of like shot where you're looking off into the distance and you've got a bit of a pump or whatever, and then you're inserting motivational quote here. And I think it's going to, like, the way social media platforms are going to change. There's going to be a lot more authenticity coming back. And at the end of the day, if you want to achieve any sort of goal, it's got to be sustainable and there's got to be longevity to it. So that's why I wouldn't mind maybe putting a little more time and effort into social media, not to build a following. I don't care about that sort of stuff. You know, I've got my mates here, and I would rather have real mates in real life rather than, you know, 10,000 followers or 20,000 followers. And unfortunately, a lot of these people, they put a lot of their happiness into how many likes they get on a photo, and it can become very addictive, you know. And then if you put up a photo that doesn't get as many likes as a previous photo, you can have some mental battles going on, like, why didn't they like this as much? Is there something wrong about me in this picture? Am I not as lean? And there's just a lot that goes into it nowadays, and that's just social media in general, whether it's for bodybuilding, whether it's for young teenagers in high school and that sort of thing. There's a lot of comparison that goes on, and that can set people up mentally to be in a, you know, I guess a pretty risky mindset where they can start self-doubting and thinking they're not good enough. And these people are waking up and comparing themselves to this chick that she's just had a photo shoot. It's probably been like edited on Photoshop and bronzed and this and that. She's probably trained for an hour before that photo. And then, like, meanwhile, Sally, she's just rolled out of bed. It's 5 a.m. The hair's in, like, some sort of, like, bee's bird's nest thing up top. She's not feeling great. But she's going to compare herself to that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would like to, if I was going to spend a bit more time on social media, try and, like, I guess, educate people on it. It's not like that. Like, I've been in this industry for a lot of years, and it's not all glitz and glam like people display it is. You know, everyone has shit days. Everyone has, like, well, hopefully there's good days as well, but
yeah,
I think it's about having more good days than shit days, obviously. And hey, I love having a good time, so that's what I spend a lot of my life doing. So that's the sort of stuff I put up on social media.
Yeah, that's great.
Feel that right in there.
and that kind of leads on nicely to we do this thing. It's become we're only 3 episodes in, but it's become a bit of a tradition that we do like a bodybuilding quote room 101. So kind of the one thing in, like, the whole kind of fitness and bodybuilding industry which you detest and would want to get rid of. Is there anything particular that stands out for you, Ben?
Did you say, sorry, the one thing in the industry that I would get rid of?
Yeah, that you'd get rid of and that you hate.
I would say, there's 2 things, and they actually tie into one. I think in terms of, and this is something I've been thinking, I think people would get much better results if they didn't have their phones in the gym. Now, it's a bit because if you've got Spotify or your music playing on there, but man, the amount of people I see now, they've no sooner wrapped the phone's out and you see the finger going there on the scroll. And I honestly, like, I'm sure you guys have seen it there too.
Yeah.
I see it all the time here. I see it all the time. And I honestly feel like if we all left our phones in our cars we would get a lot more done in the gym. You'd have a lot better focus. You'd have a lot better workouts, even from mind to muscle connection to just keeping you in the zone in between each set. Maybe focus on your breathing, lowering your heart rate, having a bit of a stretch, or, the list goes on. But then that ties in with, most of the time, these people are then on social media in between sets. And I think social media has worked wonders for the world in terms of connecting people. Like, media, for every pro there's a con as well. And I think nowadays, especially in the fitness industry, social media has had a profound impact. And I mean, all it takes now is for you to go to an expo, be it BodyFit, be it our Arnold's over here in Australia, and the people with the biggest lineups getting the photos taken with and everything, they're not even the ones that compete. Like, I guess, yeah, some of them do, but it's these guys and girls that have the biggest following. And then you might see, like, the professional IFBB bodybuilder sitting over there. He might be kicking back on his phone because he's got one person lined up to take a photo with him. And it's changed the whole industry, in my opinion. And nowadays, the last expo I went to, I felt like it was almost more of like and I'm not saying this to offend anyone, this is just being honest, but it almost felt a bit more like a social media popularity contest than it was about the athletes and the products there. You got stands of these manufacturers that have amazing supplements, and these people that have competed for years that probably have some, a ton of advice that could pass on to the everyday gym goer. But it's the people that are like Insta famous, that they are the ones with the lineups. And it's just, it's just evolution, really. And it's something that it's just naturally headed in that direction. And so I think it's an interesting time in the next few years, what will happen if there's going to be a bit of a 180 with that. But so I would say, in sort of summarizing that answer, I wouldn't say I'd get rid of social media, because, like I said, it's got a numerous list of advantages. But maybe I think just people need to focus less on others and staying in their own lane more. So I guess less comparison and more so looking, I guess, within.
Yeah, and I think that's a common theme at the moment with other people that we've spoken to. Like last time we spoke to Vicky McCann, and we asked her the same question, and she had no hesitation in telling us that she would put Instagram in room 101 straight away. And
I think I think that's her big stance on that was
it's probably the people that have been around. Oh, sorry, boys. Sorry, you go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say her kind of big thing on that was that she'd noticed, particularly with things like filming and like filming your whole workout and kind of comparison to other people. And I don't know, is that a thing that's quite common over there as well now? Filming your workouts. And
it's funny you say that. There was a girl the other day that, and I'm not saying this by any means that it's more prevalent in females than males. I've seen it on both ends of the scale, but I think she was spending, like, it would have been at least a song in the gym. So 3-4 minutes, like getting this angle after a set on the leg extensions. And, that then carries on to the whole filming thing. And hey, if you've got a PT business that your income is dependent on maybe you uploading some videos, I totally get that. And I totally respect that. But I also think that you got to be, respectful for other gym users as well. And I've seen firsthand other gym users be, I guess, a little bit put off or a little bit intimidated by some of these people doing the videos in the gym. And whether it's like girls in the quite minimal material items across the top and bottom that are doing their ab circuits and their glute kickbacks on the cables, or whether it's a dude training with his shirt off, again, that might look quite alpha and might be intimidating for the new fella that's just walked in the gym that might just want to drop 10 kilos. I think both of those examples can be a little bit intimidating, and maybe, at the end of the day, we're trying to get, I think as a whole, you want to get more people into health and fitness just for general longevity of our human race. And like, when there's that sort of stuff going on in the gym, these people probably have had anxiety just about driving to the gym, let alone getting there and then seeing all this, like, I guess a little bit superficial stuff going on.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It is hard, because I get that some people, it's their business, but then you got a lot of people on the other hand that maybe they're doing it potentially for the wrong reasons. It might not be for a business benefit, but more so for a bit of a self-esteem when they see those blue thumbs up coming up on the like button, you know. I don't want to offend anyone here. I'm just being a realist.
Please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we'd all agree as well. There are definitely some positive aspects of social media, and it's undoubtedly helped grow the sport in some ways, and it's good for promotion of natural bodybuilding. But on the same stance, it's also, as we've talked about with a lot of the guests, is that it does have some negative aspects, and it's like anything, isn't it? We've all got an opinion.
Yep, we have opinions, as they say, are like arseholes. Everybody's got one, and I'm an arsehole. So
that's all right.
But I mean, I was thinking about this last night, about asking you about the Room 101 thing, and I thought, what would I put in? And there's something. Again, they've got two things, and it comes back to the phones. And I was in the gym last week, and there was a guy in there, and he probably would make a reasonable men's bikini athlete, and he had the earphones in, and he spent his entire workout and my entire workout, and I was in there for about 90 minutes, and he was on the phone speaking to someone during his sets, in between his sets, and I thought, you can't be training hard enough if you can have and hold a conversation and concentrate on that and not what you're doing. I mean, and he was distracting me, and I just, and it took all my energy not to go over and tell him to fuck off out the gym, because that is annoying. It is so off-putting when you're trying to train and someone's just having a conversation.
Someday.
Yeah, and then, and I don't know if you get this. I don't know if you get this in Australia, but I know that. When I was visiting friends who've moved to Australia, and this is in Perth, people go to the shops in barefoot and some in, as you would call them, thongs. So we're talking flip flops, and this is the barefoot thing was a new thing for me. But we're getting people going in the gym wearing fucking flip flops or thongs.
Oh,
what is this about? I mean, I don't understand it.
That here now too.
I mean, that can fuck off, because that's dangerous for a start. And I'm just waiting for the moment someone drops a weight plate on the foot. And I know shoes probably aren't going to prevent an injury when you do that, but it's going to cushion a little bit of the thing, So please put that can go in as well.
I think even more so for hygiene. If they want to risk and potentially break their foot, hey, that's up to them. But don't be bringing that athlete's foot onto the bench. I'm about to do a chest press on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's another aspect.
It's
like respect for other members, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just a quick one on that is when we're talking about the filming stuff is like, I think that's all well, and if you want to film your workout, by all means crack on. But if you've got a big tripod and you're putting it on some other machines so you can get your angle, and and that's not like, I've seen that where machines are out of action because people have got their equipment set up on machines and things, and that, it's just having respect for your fellow members, I guess.
Yeah. Agreed.
So we'll move on.
I think it's funny you boys say that about the barefoot thing. I think where that sort of potentially stemmed from is like there's some strength training coaches that have put an emphasis on certain technique cues when squatting or deadlifting, like grip the ground with your feet, or like in terms of externally rotating the hip and whatnot. And some of these guys preach that, and it is true that nowadays with footwear that our feet muscles have become lazy, and that we should be looking at strengthening them some more. And I totally get that, but also you got to have respect for the other guys in the gym too. So maybe if you want to walk around barefoot at home, and then admittedly I've done a set of squats before in socks, but I've also got some of those 5-finger shoes, those Vibrams, that you always get a couple interesting looks in the gym. But I'm always aware of those around me. So I think it's something that who knows what'll be next.
Questions?
Just being a bit. How are you for time, Ben? Are you all right?
Yeah, do you mind if I go to the toilet 1 sec?
No, crack on, and we'll just we'll have a little discussion about. Go on, Ben, and
I'll be 1 sec.
Cool. So I mean, we've got a few listener questions already lined up, but shall we just see if we've got any interaction going on the post?
I'll give you some shout outs if that's all right. So,
please do.
On the shout outs, we've got, let me just go down the list. Mark Newton, hi to you. And
Hi,
Nick Adams, Opio Te Okwi?
Yeah, Opio.
Yeah,
Opio.
Opio, actually, the year after Ben won the DFAC World's Pro Card, so that's a shout out to Opio.
We've got Faye Ellis, Paul Thompson, Pete Lawson, Matty Beaumont.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you've not shared already, can you do that for us?
Absolutely. Matty's a young character. He's a good lad.
Sorry, back on here.
Edward Davidson, Mark Claxton, Paula Cox, James Bobby Sands, and Mike Prince.
Awesome. We've got some names there. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And I want to clarify that Ben has been drinking from a bottle, and I'm sad to say that it's not a beer, not a real one. It's a kombucha.
So, yeah, unfortunately, kombucha.
Ginger beer. Nothing wrong with being ginger.
Saturdays are for boys.
So Ben, we usually open up to listeners for questions, or we've asked people to send in some questions prior to today, and I'm going to go with the first one, and probably it's from Vicky McCann, first one, and she wants to know when you're going to do your first pro show with the DFAC, post winning obviously your card.
Hopefully, the plan is I'm off to Europe in 3 weeks for a holiday with my country, and so it wouldn't make for ideal prep this year, but the goal is 2020, next year I'll be heading on over again.
Excellent.
Really looking forward to that. I've just got to try and keep these shoulders intact. They are like, I do have some injuries at the moment, and I'm pretty sure left, but I can train around that enough to be able to compete, in my opinion. So 2020 is the goal next year for that one.
And remember, Ben, we do have a British Grand Prix over here that you can come over for.
I'm glad you said that. I bumped into Bob Waterhouse. He came over for. I think he might be out here still. But
just
bumped into him at our Australian. Oh, has he? I saw he was in Bali, but yeah, I bumped into him at one of our fitness expos over here, and we were chit-chatting about next year and everything, and I really want to come and do that one, just mainly to be with the fellas. I mean, it's a bonus to get
We'll get a beer. We'll get a beer. Fuck the gym.
Cool to come hang out with you guys.
Yeah, we'll get a beer. That's never mind anything else.
We'll get tanned up, we'll sit around, we'll drink some beers.
I would love that personally.
So yeah, I would like to do that. What time of year is that one? What month?
It's usually October, isn't it? Late September, October. Usually a few weeks before Worlds, isn't it?
Yeah, about 4 weeks usually prior, or thereabouts.
That works out well. I could do like another road trip next year, but like a UK edition Euro trip. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Get on.
I definitely would consider coming and doing that because I've spoken to a few boys about it. So hey, let's try and make that happen.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. We'll keep in touch over that.
Yeah. Right. So we've got another question from one of our friends, Darren Shepherd-Loxton. He's another competitor. He asks, what was your favourite gym when you were travelling between Miami and LA?
Oh, okay. There was a few good ones actually. One that I've had quite a few good sessions at, because I've been to California a few times, is there's a powerhouse there. I'm just trying to think. It's
Dave Fisher's.
I could Google the name real quick, but it's yes, that one. Dave Fisher's.
In Redondo Beach,
had good
isn't it?
Sessions there. I like that one. Yes, that's the one. That's cool. I mean, hey, Gold's Gym is a great place. It's awesome, but sometimes it's quite packed, and I feel like it's a gym that everyone's eyeballing each other at. It's amazing to be in there because it's motivating. You see all these amazing posters of the best of the best of all of bodybuilding, really, from back 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, current. So in that regard, it's motivating. But I feel like there's a lot of eyeballing going on over there. I really did like that Powerhouse gym. Where else has been good? Oh, actually, there was one. It was in Long Beach, and it was not the guy that says it's still your mother effing set. Not that guy. It was I could look it up on my phone real quick, I reckon. It was one in Long Beach, and they've got a couple of them getting around.
Was it
give me one second. I'm going to look it up on my
Metroflex?
phone, otherwise it's going to drive me. Metroflex, Long Beach.
Yeah, because I know they've obviously it was the original was Ronnie's in Arlington, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they've got a few now, haven't they?
That is the one, Metroflex in Long Beach. That was actually probably, I reckon that would have snagged top spot. I walked in there and it sounded like a nightclub. Like there was bass going, there's speakers going, there's just big jack dudes in there. That was cool. That one, I really enjoyed that. I highly encourage that if you're in California, actually. So
there you go, DSL. If this year, Miami, you know where to go.
Cool. I had another one. You kind of answered this a little bit when we were talking about the different federations, but Nicole Weeks Boyers, she's you probably remember her. Maybe she's a DFAC Masters figure competitor. She asked, why did you choose to earn your pro card in each of those individual federations, as opposed to maybe would you have been eligible as a WMBF pro to compete as a pro already in those feds, or were you quite conscious that you wanted to earn it through?
So, yeah, what happened with that was I won the WMBF pro card in 2012, and then what happened was, because they had a ruling where I think you had to use your pro card within 12 months or 24 months. Otherwise, it would be kind of, you would have to basically reapply.
Okay. Yeah, we've heard about
now, because through that time I went through the surgeries, but I actually contacted them, and based on medical conditions, they let me do that one as a pro straight away. And then as DFAC, I kind of felt like I needed to earn that as well. In regard to ICN, we had it used to be called INBA here. So that was our big show in Australia, our big natural show. And I had earned a pro card in NBA when I went to Slovakia. But then it had basically, I'm not sure the exact story what happened, but INBA split, and then they created ICN, which is I compete naturally. And then, so that was all new. Getting a pro card and everything was new for that one. So that, I hope that sort of summarizes where there may have been maybe confusion as to why I did each one.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And obviously, as we say, it's just proving your worth as a natural pro. Right, have you got any more there, Chris? I did have one more from.
Go for it. No, I haven't.
We had one from I can't remember his surname, but he's on social media as Mike Conqueror. He was at the DFAC Worlds in 2017. He was the heavyweight. You may or may not remember. He basically asks, "What is your trick for getting so shredded?" So I guess your kind of cardio, your approach to dieting. Talk a little bit about that briefly.
I missed a little bit of that question, but I heard the bit about how do you get shredded. So I can pretty much tackle that.
Yeah, go ahead.
In regards to this, I think there's a few things that I guess I would give advice to. I would suggest giving yourself more time than what you think you actually need. I suggest getting someone that's unbiased, that is not a family member, not really a friend, to get a look at your physique and actually give you an honest assessment, particularly throughout the prep as well, so that it's just natural that our family and friends are going to say, you look fantastic, you look great, you're ready. Unfortunately, there's a big difference, as you guys know, to being gym ready to being stage ready. So that's another thing I do is be brutally honest with yourself. The biggest thing is, I think, in my opinion, hard work and the sacrifice and discipline. So have the goal, have the game plan, do the work. When you think you're ready, you're not. Give yourself more time. And I think ignore the scales as well, because it tends to be more of a guy thing than a girl thing, but they all have like a weight in their head. Say if in the off season let's just say they're 85 kilos, they're going to be like, right, I'm going to compete at 80. So I'll drop 5 kilos body fat, this and that. But ultimately, we end up normally competing lighter than what we initially predict. That's always sort of happened with me. And I think a lot of people get scared, like I was saying, especially the guys, when they get to this 80 kilos, they think, shit, I'm 80, like that's what I was supposed to compete at. So they almost, they justify not pushing further because they think they're going to be smaller on stage, when in fact, if they dropped another 1 or 2%, they'd look bigger and better on stage. So don't rely so much upon the number that's on the scales, but rely upon just your actual conditioning and how you feel you are looking. So if you are, for example, 80 and you think that you're good enough, I guarantee you could probably drop another kilo or 2. So try and just push the boundaries a bit, see what the body's capable of. I mean, and do so safely, obviously. You know, that I do is extreme. It's just to back myself in, and I'm very determined to see what. And that's not to. I don't have that fire in me to beat other people. Like, I love to win, but I don't use others as my motivating and driving force. I use myself as a test to think, right, this is how lean I am now. What if I might be able to get a little bit leaner? What if I could drop another 0.5%? There's just a fun at the end there of catabolic and maybe losing a little bit of muscle. So you still want to retain as much tissue as possible, but 9 times out of think they're ready, I would give yourself another few weeks of dieting.
Yeah. Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I'm kind of glad that, like, there are a few people out there that maybe don't go that last 2 or 3 weeks. Otherwise, they'd just kick my ass all the time.
I think you're being a bit modest there, mate.
But yeah, it's also good. Just it's something you talked about earlier when, and it kind of, you talk about doing a longer prep, and it's about that whole kind of prep and not just what happens in the last few weeks or so. So you talked about that horrendous lead up to the 2017 Worlds, where you had food poisoning, you had that issue with your flights and stuff, and that's just a kind of a reminder to people that it's not all lost if you have a few mishaps in the last week. It's what everything that you've done before that, isn't it? So it was good to share that.
If you're ready, you're ready, and I think that's one thing that people maybe put a little bit too much emphasis on, is this peak week. And that, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're looking amazing a week out, don't mess with too much stuff. Like, if things are going well, don't try and, like, extreme changes create, like, well, they come at a high price and they are risky. So if you're looking good a week out, I think more people just need to focus on being comp ready that 1 or 2 weeks out. And then, hey, if you want to do a gradual carb load, if you want to reduce your water a little bit the day before, hey, go for it. But where a lot of these people go wrong is they've dieted their whole prep. Just say their carb sources have been oatmeal, sweet potato, and rice. And then during their carb up, you see them drinking like brown rice syrup, and they're having all these like super sweet honeys and everything like that. And I'm talking days out, not even just backstage, but like 2 days out. They're reintroducing all these carbs their body hasn't had for 6 months. And you're playing with fire. That's why they end up getting bloated, or they might get the shits, or they might become a bit fluid retentive. Like, just stick to what your body knows.
Yeah.
Stick to what your body knows. Just maybe fluctuate the quantities a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Do we have any questions coming from viewers?
No questions. Just a couple of things, a couple of comments. Ben looking crazy at the WMBF World 2017 Shreds on Shreds.
Agreed.
We've also got 2 shoulder injuries.
Oh,
Yikes!
Thanks, guys.
So and a comment from Jamie Bobby Sands. Great stories, great podcast.
Awesome.
Thanks for the comments.
I've just got another question, Ben. A bit of an on the spot one. We asked it to Bob Waterhouse as well. who, in your opinion, and maybe he had a top 3, but who is your all-time best natural bodybuilder?
Ooh. I've got a bit of a man crush on Bob Waterhouse. I think he's great.
Don't
I
we
think
all?
he's awesome.
Big Bob.
He's gonna love that.
Yeah, and like, I know he will as well. And the funny thing is, like, he's one guy that really goes from like quite carb heavy off season. Like,
That's a nice way of putting it.
That guy comes in. Yeah. I remember he showed me the photo. Like, I think he dropped like 25 or 30 kilos one prep. And I'm thinking, oh Jesus! Like, this guy, he went from Michelin man to this like Greek Adonis on stage.
Yeah,
he looks phenomenal. Like his proportions and everything. Like, that is goals. And I mean, some of us could train for years and never quite look like that, just based on biomechanical structure and our anatomy and our, bone lengths and waist size and everything. I think he's fantastic. I think Nathan PT's his Instagram name. I think is it Nathan
Williams.
He won the world titles a couple of times. You guys, he's an absolute freak. That dude,
Nate Williams. Yeah.
His thickness, and to my knowledge, I think he's a little bit taller, isn't he?
He's taller than you would imagine. Yeah, I think he's probably about 5'10".
Yeah. And I think for him to be able to fill out his limbs and to have such a nice shape for a taller dude, I think he's phenomenal. David Kay is phenomenal. There's Doug Miller. His just size is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Who else do I like? Oh mate, there's some Aussies back here. Joel Ramintis, Justin Figuera. I think Justin Figuera actually might come over next year and do DFAC with me. So he would be a very
awesome,
strong pro. Ricardo, who did IMBA, I think he's amazing. Nick Jones, he's been my mentor and I guess role model since day one. So I think with our sport, there's a lot of guys that are really helping evolve and progress it. Like, the standards are just getting better and better. And so I think it's very hard to maybe pick a top 3, but there's a handful of guys that are really, they're making a lot of these IFBB guys look unconditioned.
Yeah. And the thing about a lot of these guys as well is just how humble they all are as well. Having spoken to a number of the ones you've spoken to, obviously not the Australian ones, but they're all nice guys, and they're not at all up their own arses that, that they might have a degree of justification for being so as well, being quite so good, but they're not. And there's a lot to be said for that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting to say that, because like a few of these guys, I know Nathan's following's quite big on social media, but a lot of the other top guys we sort of mentioned, like their followings aren't, anywhere near some of these Insta famous kind of Beachbody dudes. So there's an interesting correlation there. Maybe because they're not working so much on their followings, they're working harder in the gym. I'm not shooting any shots here or firing anything, but
yeah.
And maybe that's what a lot of their success is attributed to, is that these guys are humble and they don't think they're better than anyone else, so they are willing to go that extra mile and see what they're capable of.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I think we're just about coming to the end now, Ben. So we'd like to extend our thanks for you taking the time out of your evening to speak with us. I know we've had a couple of signal issues, but overall it's been really enjoyable. I've personally found it of great interest actually getting to speak to you and getting to know you a bit better, and I look forward to maybe meeting you in person soon, a competition or other in the future.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Loads of good stories. I think we'll undoubtedly get some more good feedback. So thanks for joining us, Ben. Good to speak to you again,
guys. Honestly, not a problem at all, and I can't thank you enough for inviting me on it. I could talk all day about this stuff. I love it, and I know we probably went a little bit more into lifestyle and everything rather than training itself, but I also think that's important nowadays as well, because that balance is what I think should be promoted and preached a little bit more. And I can't wait to come over there next year and hang out with you boys again. Hopefully not have any nice dinner this time, so I don't look like I'm having menopause while eating a burger. And I'd just like to give a quick shout out and thanks to my sponsor, Gentech Nutrition, and Nick Jones. He's always stuck with me since day one. So I'd like to thank them, all my family and friends. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, boys. And anytime you're looking for another chat, just let me know.
Fabulous. Awesome, Ben. We'll keep in touch.
And before we wrap up, again, guys, thanks for watching, listening, liking, commenting, sharing. Please keep doing it. And again, before we go, Spartan Supplements, thanks again for your sponsorship. It really means a lot that you give us your backing, because without sponsors, we probably wouldn't be able to do this and keep it going. So it's really important. And if anybody would like to continue to sponsor us for the next few episodes, get in touch. And if you've got any people that you'd like to see on the podcast, drop us a message. We're more than willing to take any suggestions, although we do have a list and we're getting through it slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just also a quick shout out to all of the companies that have sponsored our episode so far. We really appreciate it. It allows us to produce a podcast in this awesome studio, which has
spread the natural bodybuilding world,
which has become the sort of the hub of global bodybuilding, it seems, at the moment, and an unlikely place in glorious Wigan.
Massive thanks to you, Chris, for that.
No worries.
Cool. So yeah, Ben, thanks again, mate, and we'll wrap that up there, and hopefully again, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, have a good evening, Ben.
No worries, boys.
Take care.
Enjoy the summer. Go grab a beer. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, mate.
Just a quick one before we end it, guys. Instagram, is your account's going well? Do you want to give a shout out to that people to follow it?
Yeah, please. If you haven't already, we're Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide on Instagram. We do have a YouTube channel under the same name. Please go over to there and subscribe. Give us a like. Drop us a message. Comment on some of the posts as well. They're all very welcome, but we do appreciate your support.
And also just head over, as we said, to Spartan Protein. Give them a quick follow. And
use that discount code, FIRST15.
There we go.
Okay, guys.
Right.
Well, thanks very much again for another great Natural Bodybuilding Worldwide podcast here from the Pump Media Studios. Great to have you guys in, as always. And we'll see you again next time for another podcast.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care. See you soon.